When we think of the most memorable locations in the land of Skyrim, there are a number of worthy contenders, but arguably one of the most pretty locations can be found where you'd least expect it, at the bottom of a crypt. I'm talking about Frostmere Depths. After venturing down into the pits of this Nordic tomb, swatting cobwebs away with your torch and dispatching of a handful of opportunistic grave-robbing bandits, the Frostmere Crypt opens up into a picturesque wooded glade. The pine trees here bathe in a pale blue glow as phantasmic wisps of crystal bob on the wind, weaving around the trees. But as you descend into the centre of the clearing, a waterfall feeds a large basin, and in the centre of the water, some stone steps lead up to an altar. Unfortunately, this altar isn't dedicated to some benevolent divine. It is instead devoted to the Wisp Mother who haunts this glade. Her luminescent form may be a wonder to behold, but do not be fooled, for she is deadly, and her wisps will drain the life from your body until you are as pale as the mother herself. As you can tell, there is far more to the Frostmere Depths than a seemingly nice picnic spot, and the presence of this unique Wisp Mother has provoked turmoil among the bandits nearby, even causing them to turn on their own. Luckily, the Dragonborn is here to discover the truth behind this curiosity. Hey guys, it's Drew here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. In this video we're going to get to the bottom of this story, and we're going to reveal the truth behind the Pale Lady of Frostmere. We'll first learn that something is amiss in this crypt when discovering the location for the first time. Outside the Frostmere Crypt, a group of bandits can be found engaged in a bloody fight. I know what you're thinking, isn't that extremely typical of a bunch of bandits? No one is quicker to whip out their swords than these common criminals. But what is odd about this situation is that the bandits are attacking one of their own. After watching the lone fighter, a woman named Isa Blackthorn, take down a gang of assailants, we can learn some interesting information from her. Apparently, all of this commotion started over a sword. One of the bandits stole it from the boss, and Isa was the scapegoat. Only our real culprit probably would have been better off pinning the blame on someone less capable of defending themselves. If you miss out on the fight, don't fret, because you can still start the quest even if you find Isa standing alone atop the steps leading to Frostmere Crypt. She carries a note which gives the same information, and it can be pickpocketed, or taken from her corpse if you prefer the more direct strategy. Either way, we'll be able to locate another copy of her journal later, so let's assume we didn't steal from or kill Isa, and let's wander into the tomb. The moment we enter the crypt, we'll see that this place isn't so quiet. This tomb is full of the living, and sitting directly in front of the entrance are two bandits. Much like cockroaches, seeing one bandit means there's bound to be plenty more ahead, so we best be prepared for a few fights. Anyway, if we listen carefully, we'll see that these bandits are talking about Isa, the woman we just met, the betrayed bandit. They seem to be questioning why Isa got mixed up in all this. Apparently it was a man named Regier who was dragging her into trouble. That must be the friend Isa was talking about, the one who did steal the boss's sword. Through the winding maze of tunnels and catwalks, we can learn more about this situation. Every bandit seems to be talking about the crazy cat Regier, Isa, and then a man named Kier. In one of the rooms, Kier's log is sitting on the table waiting to be read by a nosy adventurer. Within, Kier documents the discovery of the wooded glade in the Frostmere Depths. It reads, Frostmere Crypt, Week 12. What a disaster. We haven't seen a caravan in a week. We actually lost ground in the tunnels. Fal and his team were crushed when this section collapsed. I've heard word of a mutiny, if next week isn't any better. Frostmere Crypt, Week 13. 2 new recruits, Isa and Regier. Girl said she did time in Sidna Mine down in Markarth, and it shows. She's got more experience than all of us put together. I've put her in charge of the dig. Cat's good with a blade, so I've sent him topside with the raiders. Frostmere Crypt, Week 14. Tunnels going well. Isa made our first big find just yesterday, buried chest with a couple of 100 gold. Topside, Regier and his team have hit 5 merchants this week, in and out faster than the guard could respond. Looks like things are finally going my way. Frostmere Crypt, Week 15. The tunnel broke out into some kind of giant cavern. There's whole forests down here. Found a nice sword all laid out on some kind of monument and everything. But this is just strange. Eerie. What is this place? Not like any tomb I've ever seen. Frostmere Crypt, Week 16. I think the cat's gone crazy. All of a sudden he can't focus, keeps muttering to himself. He's gone from our best raider to our worst, botched 2 jobs just today. Isa's trying to cover for him, but she's not fooling anyone. Lately he keeps asking to see my sword, begging to borrow it, like I'll let him get his paws on it. It's beautiful, perfectly balanced, better than any I've ever held. Sure, he can have it, right in the gut. So there's a lot to take away from this, but most importantly we see that Keir is the boss, and this is the stolen sword we'd heard about. And while it does clear up the confusion about who has the motive to steal the sword, it doesn't explain why Regier is acting so strangely. But this seems like more than typical bandit shenanigans. I doubt it's uncommon for bandits to shiv each other in the back over a piece of loot, but what's this about going crazy? Further along in the same antechamber, an adjoining room has a journal and a note on the table. The journal belongs to Isa, and it tells us more about her story. Isa came from a bandit camp southeast of Frostmere Crypt. She was a part of the White River Gang, who reside in White River Watch just across the water from Whiterun. An interesting side note, and one thing I love about the Elder Scrolls, is the continuity. If you make the journey out to Isa and Regier's former gang, you can find their former leader, Hajvar Ironhand's journal. Inside he reveals that Isa and Regier were mutineers who turned on their old allies. Anyway, she and Regier are solely responsible for turning Keir and his band's luck. We get additional confirmation that Isa's expertise is linked to a year spent in Sidna Mine. I'm sure many of you will recognise that name from the Forsworn Conspiracy, and if you're unfamiliar, we go into great detail about that quest in our last full story video. She also tells us more about Regier's stupor and the events leading up to it. She writes, "Night shift woke me to say they'd hit something big. Keir, Regier and I went down to take a look. It's huge, like a whole forest was just swallowed up by the earth, with a big old monument out in the centre. Keir took the sword from it as a trophy, proof his whole plan was finally paying off. For once he might be right. Regier's been having nightmares over the past few days. He keeps muttering about a pale lady, one of those swamp women who steal children away at night, I think. To think some fool story could turn the toughest bandit I know into a cowering kitten, frightened of his own shadow. I'm just glad none of the others see him like this. It's getting worse. Regier can barely sleep at all now, and whenever he dozes off he wakes up screaming. Woke the whole place last night. He says the pale lady is coming for us. She's down in the forest. We have to return the sword or she'll kill us all. Not a chance. The boss clings to that thing like he was born with it. I've told everyone Regier just has a fever, but this can't go on. I've pulled a few things together. I'll slip out tonight and never look back." So Regier doesn't seem to be interested in taking the sword for himself as Keir suggested. Instead he seems adamant about returning it to the exact place they found it, and Isa wants no part in the proceedings, which is why we saw her fighting her way out when we first arrived at the crypt. And then when we put down Isa's journal and take a look at Regier's scribblings on the blood-stained note, we can see how truly extreme his ravings and ramblings have become. "Isa, I see her in every shadow. Hear her voice on every breath of wind. In my dreams, in my ears, in my mind. The pale lady, we have to stop her. Just return the sword and we can shut her away forever. I can't take this anymore. I have to do it. I must. Regier." If we're going to get to the bottom of this, we're going to have to follow in Keir and Regier's footsteps, seeing this cursed glade for ourselves. Deeper and deeper into the crypt we go. Who knows, maybe Keir got the situation under control. But as soon as we leave the dusty mines of the crypt and take a swallow of the fresh evening air of the Frostmere forest, the tranquil atmosphere is soiled by the sight of a man lying in the dirt, bleeding to death slowly. It's Keir, and with his dying breaths he tells us what happened.
Finally, someone came. The cat, Regier, ambushed me. He's trying to take the sword back. I can't.
But before he can utter the rest of the sentence, he makes his final journey to Sovngarde, and we are happened upon by a wisp. Only this wisp seems uninterested in killing us, instead leading us further into the woods, along a dirt track. Ahead we can spy Regier. The deluded Khajiit has unsheathed the sword, and ahead of him a powerful Whist Mother, the Pale Lady. She makes quick work of the poor cat. His nightmares may finally cease now that his soul is released. You may be mesmerised in the moment by the onslaught on your senses, the sound of the wind susurrating through the trees, clicking crickets in the brush, and the ethereal rumbling of powerful magic coalesce in the clearing before the altar. The Pale Lady and her entourage of wisps emit bright magical auras which reflect off of the surface of the water, creating apparitions everywhere you cast your eyes. But if we stop to take in the stimulating scene, we may just go out the same way Regier did, so we must now make a choice. We can fight our way out, liberating the sword for ourselves and slaying each and every wisp before cutting down the Pale Lady, or we can have faith in the insane Khajiit's ploy, picking up the sword and placing it upon the altar. If we choose to fight, it will not be easy. Not only is the Pale Lady tough, but she can create distractions and decoys through her conjuring of shades. These shades look identical to the Pale Lady, only they don't shine quite as brightly. She can even call upon these when her wisps have been killed. But if you can withstand her never-ending onslaught of frost magic, and she's turned to ash, ready to fertilise the soil of the glade, then the quest will be completed and you'll have the Pale Blade as your reward. After all, Keir is not alive to ask for it back. However, the Pale Lady can be banished without conflict. Placing the sword back in its place atop the monument will cause the Pale Lady to disappear and the crisis will be averted. But if you can't take your eyes off the sword and can't fathom the idea of leaving a dungeon without your reward, this option is not for you. Unfortunately, you can't pull an Indiana Jones, subtly replacing the sword with a crappy iron one. No, if you remove the sword from its resting place, the Pale Lady will materialise once more to plague the crypt. So in the interest of hoarding as much loot as possible, we best get to work killing the mystical Wisp Mother. Before we leave, there's a couple of things to attend to. The word wall for the ice form shout can be found up the staircase to the right, along with the main boss chest. But if we cross to the other side of the clearing, there's another boss chest, only this one requires the picking of a master lock. But with that said and done, we can head to the exit, pondering the events of the quest in the process. There are references to a Pale Lady outside of Frostmere Crypt in Skyrim, and these references seem to suggest that ancient settlers knew about her presence. A book titled Lost Legends suggests that the Pale Lady was present in Skyrim long before the Nords. Before the Nords, there were the Atmorans, and back in the Malefic era, the legendary Atmoran warriors, Isgramor's ancestors, apparently feuded with a being named the Pale Lady. The book says, "The history of Skyrim is vast, predating even the most ancient records of man and Mer. Much has been lost, fallen to the ravages of war or the turning of the ages, but nothing is ever truly forgotten. Where no records exist, legends and folktales offer us a key to the past, a way to piece together truths half remembered in the minds of men. For generations, the people of Morphal have told whispered tales of the Pale Lady, a ghostly woman who wanders the northern marshes, forever seeking her lost daughter. Some say she steals children who wander astray, others that her sobbing wail strikes dead all those who hear it. But behind these tales may lie a kernel of truth. For ancient records speak of Ormriel, a mysterious figure Isgramor's heirs battled for decades and finally sealed away." So after all of this, it seems that Ice's speculation might have been correct. She claimed the Pale Lady was one of those swamp women who steals children, and while that seems like little more than a wives' tale told to misbehaving children, the story adds up. Frostmere Crypt is not far from Morphal, and when we stumble upon the Pale Lady's lair, it was clear that the removal of the sword from its resting place is what caused her to be freed from her imprisonment. The job carried out by Isgramor's heirs was dormant for centuries, until Keir and his bandits came to the wrong crypt. This serves as an important reminder to gold-hungry bandits who consider it a victimless crime to raid barrows and loot tombs. There is old magic in these ancient structures, and all it takes is one idiot to unleash a force that could kill countless innocents. The Pale Lady may also be a reference to another Pale Lady who lived in Skingrad during the Oblivion crisis. This Pale Lady was not a Wisp Mother, but rather a vampire. She dwelled deep in the dungeons of Castle Skingrad, where she would feed upon the prisoners. You wouldn't want to be done for petty thievery in this county, as the penalty will make you go pale in the face. The Pale Lady's real name is Mina, just like the character from Bram Stoker's famous novel Dracula. And there you have it guys, the full story of the Pale Lady. This quest is a short one, but it is very memorable. Not just your typical stroll through a Draugr-infested crypt. If you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a like. And if you want to keep up with us outside of YouTube, take a look in the description where you'll find all of our social media links. Thank you so much for watching guys, I've been Drew and I will see you in the next one.